Avengers reportedly lost 96% of its players since launch. Yikes, and that was in November. And things have gotten even worse. Marvel Avengers just dropped that new DLC, Hawkeye. Did it save the franchise? I've got a sneak preview on that. We're going to look at all the numbers in terms of player base and Google Trends and everything. It's not looking good for this franchise, which is a huge disappointment because we were hoping that this was going to be that ultimate Marvel experience that we could all enjoy, playing our favorite heroes, going through this universe. I mean, the biggest hit movies of recent history. How could it possibly go wrong, Ross? I see the disappointment on your face right now. You were looking forward to this title the most, Marvel Avengers. I know, it hurts you deep inside, huh?
This really sucks. I really don't want to do this episode because I love comic books. I love Marvel. But my God, Square Enix.
Wow.
That's just...
To it, guys.
I just played the ad. Why live stream to one platform when you can simultaneously live stream to every platform to discover new audiences faster using Restream.io?
So the game was released last fall, and so you have your storyline, you have some multiplayer modes. The storyline takes, I think, between 10 and 20 hours to complete. You do that. Storyline was great, by the way. I do want to say that I loved the writing for this game. I thought that as far as the story they were telling, it was a classic Avengers story. And then you get into the multiplayer, and that's when it becomes the same thing every single time. There's the same objectives. Everything is the same, essentially, except for the characters that you choose to play with. And even the variety there is very much lacking. And one of the things that we talk about on the show all the time, that is, if a game is going to survive, you have to add new content. And when you're struggling to keep a player base, and then you continuously delay new content. The Kate Bishop DLC was expected to come out in October. It didn't come until December, until almost 3 months after the release. Most of the people had put this game down, and I don't say that lightly, do I, Parent?
No, you're not. Let's take a look. To understand the story of Marvel's Avengers, you gotta look at Steamcharts. Steamcharts really shows you the rise and fall of this game. As of an hour ago, there are 1,250 people playing Marvel's Avengers on Steam.
But hold on, didn't the big DLC just drop? Like, shouldn't that be way higher? Like, the big Hawkeye DLC just came out. Shouldn't there be a lot of excitement, a multi-million-dollar campaign? Am I wrong here?
We're down from the peak. The peak of this new DLC, at least on Steam, was 2,686 users, and we're going back down to the bottom, guys. That was it. That was the peak. That was the more like road bump, if you will.
We started from the bottom, and now we're back at the bottom. All right.
Like if we look at it where they started at around 28,000, and back in August, and they are down to just a tiny percentage of that 2,000. And if you scale that down, you barely even see this bump. You can see the same kind of data trend kind of going on here from the search interest on Google Trends. It's the same thing. I've actually never seen a game crater this quickly. Normally, especially a game that was widely streamed, there were a lot of Twitch streamers streaming this game. Normally it takes about 3 months for a trend to really flatten. This thing flattened in like less than a month.
And the data everybody's looking at here is worldwide YouTube search data provided directly from Google. And so it looks like if you go ahead and hover your mouse over today, or at the very end of that timeline there, what's the number? 11. So it's literally decimated. So 11. So it's literally 11% of the launch peak, actually lower than that. So when this new Hawkeye DLC launched, it only got interest up to 10% of what it was when the game launched with the new DLC. Normally you see a 20 to 30% bump at least when new DLC drops, and it looks like interest is just so low because there's so many fundamental issues with this game, and we've got 11 items that we're going to go through today to just dissect this game and to help all of our viewers out there understand when you're researching a game and you're looking at what's going to be a big winner for your YouTube channel or for your live stream or even a game that you can stick with the live service in the long term. We're going to point out some red flags that maybe you can ID earlier to save your money and maybe to save your time that we're seeing time and time again and playing out right here with Marvel's Avengers. Let's talk about the new content. Ross, you mentioned earlier that there was no new content. Well, the new content dropped, and it doesn't appear to have captured the interest of audiences and really bolstered the game again, right?
It does not. And one of the reasons, I definitely want to get to the new content, but one of the reasons, and this is actually kind of your more area of expertise here, that it faltered off is, like I mentioned earlier, the grind for this game, the amount of repetition that you have to go through to get from point A to point B in player progression is it's ridiculous. And then a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was actually a month ago, they announced that they're actually going to make it more difficult to level up your game, didn't they? So when you're making a game that is full of repetition, where you have to do the same exact thing over and over until you're just numb, and then they're like, oh, well, we're not going to give you too much more content, but what we are going to do for you, since we love you, is make you grind even more. That's just a recipe for disaster, and I don't believe that the new content, when you do something like that, the new content really doesn't have much of a chance. You're automatically eliminating a lot more of your player fan base. But the other issue with the content, other than taking multiple months to get out, and I may be skipping ahead our list here, that's fine, but releasing Kate Bishop's DLC, which I enjoyed, by the way, but it's maybe like an hour's worth of content, and then you can go play her and go through the whole grind with her, the multiplayer. It doesn't do much for me. You can, like, all the enjoyment that you get from playing with that character is done in the first hour. And then on top of that, the second big character that you add 3 months after that, 6 months after the initial launch, is another archer. Kate Bishop, for those who don't know, is an archer. She's kind of Clint Barton's understudy in the comics. So not only are you adding not necessarily a popular character in Kate Bishop, which she will be. I'm not trying to knock her. I love Kate Bishop. She's going to be a household name when the Disney Plus HAWKEYE series comes out. But when you add a character, when you lose 90% of your fan base, and then you add a character that most casual fans have probably never even heard of, and also she's an archer, and then the second big DLC that you release 6 months after the launch is another archer. Like, there's no variety here. There's nothing. You're just adding more repetition to the game, and especially when you have all kinds of wonderful Marvel characters that you can work with, and they are. Black Panther is going to be coming to the game. Abel, do you want to talk for a second about how Spiderman is going to come to the game? I know you're really excited about that.
I would like to talk for a moment about Spider-Man. So if you guys are not already familiar, you can only play Spider-Man in this game if you're on PlayStation. You literally can't buy Spider-Man if you're on the other platforms. So they locked behind that platform, essentially, the most popular and beloved character in the Marvel Universe, arguably. If you look at the box office and what have you, you could make that argument. They locked Spider-Man behind a PlayStation wall. And I was going to buy this game. I was going to grind this game. I was going to play this game big time because the gameplay looked fun. I love all the characters. But the fact that I know that other people are playing as Spider-Man and I can never play as Spider-Man, no matter what I do, just pissed me off so much. It was just such a greedy move and so messed up. And it really ruined the game for me. Now, if they had held Spider-Man back as an exclusive and not been greedy, and then they dropped a Spider-Man DLC right now for all platforms instead of HAWKEYE, you better believe interest would be 4, 5, 6 times greater than it is right now. But instead, they're dropping HAWKEYE, the least interesting and popular character, let's be honest, out of the core Avengers group. They should be dropping a Spider-Man DLC right now, and instead they locked it behind a paywall so they could get that cash money exclusive from Sony. And so Such a terrible move. It pissed me off so much, and it prevented me from buying the game. I'm not gonna do that crap. That's like getting a Star Wars game and them telling you, I'm sorry, you can't play as Obi-Wan unless you're on PlayStation. It's like, what? It's just like an essential character. It's like a main character of the Marvel Universe. They're like, nah, you just can't play it ever. And go fuck yourself. Like, I'm sorry, no, I'm out, dude, I'm out. You can't do that with a live service.
Imagine if DC made a Justice League game and then made Batman Microsoft exclusive. It's like, what's the point of even playing the game when one of the main, and I know Spider-Man wasn't like an original Avenger, but still, he's probably the most popular Marvel character out there right now. The fact that you're not including him for everyone to play, and I'm not sure how that's gonna work. I don't even know if like his story is gonna be like part of what they're doing on Xbox, or if they're just releasing no Spider-Man content whatsoever. I know he's not gonna be playable on Xbox, but they're just not releasing any playable content for Spider-Man. This is just it's mind-boggling to me, honestly. Like I don't even know what else to say, just because it seems like such a horrible business move just to get a little bit of cash up front because you know, Sony's got a lock on Spider-Man. I mean, why even include him at all if you're just going to tell half your fan base to go piss off?
That makes sense. I mean, all the numbers, Perrin, are saying that Hawkeye did not garner enough interest for this franchise, right? With this DLC drop. So let's review the rest of the numbers we have in terms of the interest of Marvel Avengers. And then let's talk about the possibility. Is this franchise even going to survive long enough for the Black Panther DLC to come to fruition? I mean, they're going to be looking at the numbers right now, right? They're going to be looking at how much player engagement there is, how much money they're making, how many concurrents they have. They're saying Black Panther's going to drop later. I'm skeptical that we'll even make it there. They might just cancel the game at this point. Like, I don't know, Perrin, let's review the rest of the numbers and you tell me what the numbers are saying. We can provide our opinion all day, but the numbers speak the truth.
Okay, so let's look at Twitch Tracker. And right now, there's 83 live viewers for this game across 39 channels with an average of 7 viewers per channel on Twitch. The peak at September 1st, 2020 was 200,000. That was, you know, that was pretty good. And in fact, actually,
it's really good.
The number of viewers here actually is 52,000 if you look at the chart. But look how quickly from September down to like, oh my God, guys, September 2nd down to like September 12th. It took 10 days for this game to 10 days, not a month, not 3 months, which is the average, by the way. 3 months is the average. It took 10 days. Okay, but let's take a closer look. We can actually zoom in here right now. Consider this for a second. This is the interest. This is the viewership bump that the new Hawkeye DLC has been adding. They have 632 viewers across 34 channels as of last Wednesday, and peaking at Friday, going from 632 viewers to about 1,200 viewers across 150 channels. You're talking about adding 600 viewers for a whole new DLC. That is not a lot of interest. If you look at that, you look at Steamcharts, where they're only going up about 1,000 concurrent players. Think about how many developers, how much their salaries are, how many developers are working on these updates versus how many people are actually playing it. The money is just not there. Like the economics are just not there. The man hours, the labor put into this game and these updates, they're not getting the return out of it. Well, the thing that we're missing here is sales. And are the DLCs free here, Ross? Do users have to purchase them?
They are free.
So they're not making, and I doubt that they've gotten additional sales from this. I can try to look at that and see here in a bit. But if they're not getting more sales in the game off this, and the player base is really not looking for it, what is the point of continuing? What is the point of taking all these developers' time and developing these updates and these DLCs for pretty much nobody to play it? And like that's the real question. So here's what they have slated. This was leaked, by the way, and you guys tell me how far you think they're gonna make it. So they have Clint Barton, and then they said actually there is a Spider-Man DLC. It looks like planned, a Peter Parker one. Now I don't know if that's just Sony or not. Probably. Then King T'Challa, Jennifer Walters, Bucky Barnes. After that, Carol Danvers, and then James Rhodes. So they are like pushing up Peter Parker in there and Black Panther clearly to be more interesting. But I think we make it to Black Panther and then they find out it's not worth it. And then it's out after this. I'd say we don't make it to Jennifer, Bucky, or Carol, or James. They're done. They cancel the project at that point.
Izzy Rock says in YouTube chat, I agree the game looked worthy at first, but after seeing others play it, I refused to buy it. That makes sense. An article on Twitch is saying that you have a PlayStation, so who cares? So, if Peter Parker allows people to play Spider-Man, I think that could bring in some viewers. Or that could bring in some players, and that could garner some interest. But I don't think we're going to get there. Here's how these companies work. They look at how DLC drops, and they look at the interest, and they look at the bump in money. And if the bump in money isn't there when you drop the DLC, then they don't give you the marketing budget to market the next DLC. And then they're just hoping that you can hustle the money, right? So if this one wasn't successful, why would the marketing department, why would the board of directors, why would any management at the company say, you know what? For the next DLC, we're going to massively increase your marketing budget, despite the fact that the previous marketing budget failed. The answer is they aren't going to do that. And so this game is in a death spiral, essentially. I think no matter how compelling the content is that they release, they're going to be stuck in a spot where they don't have enough money to market the new content that comes out because they can't justify asking for it and getting it approved internally because the previous content they released tanked so hard. Releasing HAWKEYE as their big DLC here to kind of save the game was a crushing blow, I think, to the franchise. It was a horrible strategic decision. HAWKEYE, it doesn't sell toys, right? You go to Target, you go to Walmart, what toys do you see up there for Marvel? Maybe there's one HAWKEYE up there, and it's always full. No kids are buying HAWKEYE toys, right? They want the main characters. They want Spider-Man. They want the big ones, and they should have dropped a big one right now. I think that's the final death blow in the franchise. But wait, there's more. They're going to release these other characters, but isn't the game just straight up buggy and problematic, Ross? I mean, you've experienced it more than we have, right?
Yeah, I literally, and I'm not even going to try and pull up the tweet here, but on Friday, I was like, you know what? If we're going to be talking about Marvel's Avengers next week, then I want to go and I want to play this HAWKEYE DLC. By the way, I enjoyed the gameplay. I do. I enjoyed the story. There's a lot about this game that I like, but the lack of content and the amount of repetition that's needed drove me away. Anyway, when I went to load the game, it just popped up and said, you need to download new content, and we can't do that right now. Sorry. And that was it. Never even got a chance to play the HAWKEYE. I haven't all weekend, and this is the same thing. This is the same thing that happened when I tried to play the Kate Bishop DLC at first. It just didn't work. Now I know a lot of other people don't have those issues, which is awesome. But let's move into some of the in-game bugs that I experienced. A lot of times, because of how they set the missions up, you control one hero and you kind of got like three computer player NPCs that join you. Usually about 2 out of every, 5 times, the DLC or the NPC characters would literally just stand there. They would not move. They would not fight. They would not do anything. They would just stand there and die. And I don't know if they got that bug fixed because I can't log in to play it to find out. But yeah, the game itself, it's buggy. At least it was for me. And from what I've seen, reading the reviews and talking to people online, a lot of people are experiencing these same issues. And when you don't have that fresh new content to pull it in, and when you're making the grind absolutely ridiculously difficult just to get a skin, and that's another thing, by the way, the skins and all that, they're just different colors. It's like gray Hulk, green Hulk, blue Hulk. It's like, come on, you're making us grind so we can get, a pair of blue jean shorts on the Hulk? Give me a freaking break here. So yeah, the game is buggy, to say the least. You can expect, I think it's fair to expect that with any new release that comes out. But, like I said, the point made is there's nothing else to draw you in. When you experience that, then you have no content to go back to, and you're completely burnt out within, an hour of playing multiplayer, because it's the same thing. you're done with the game. You don't have any desire to go back. And I think that's where they stand right now. My opinion on what you guys were talking about is I do think that the Spider-Man DLC will come out, and it'll come out for PlayStation probably by the end of this year, even though they don't know now. And I think the Black Panther DLC will come out this year, and I think those are going to be the two final hopes for this game. I think both of those, by the way, can actually bring in a new player fan base. We've never had, outside of a couple mobile games and some of the old games for like Xbox 360 and even PlayStation 2, we've really never had a Black Panther title. We've never actually been able to explore in a video game setting the city of Wakanda. So there is going to be a draw that brings people back in. But the question is going to be how much new content is included in this DLC. Is it going to be like the Kate Bishop one, where after an hour you're done with the storyline and then you're just stuck with the grind again? Or is it going to be an actually well thought out story that can take people a long time to actually finish and goes really into the to the core and the depth of Wakanda and the comics itself, that just do anything to draw people in? And based on what I've seen, that's not going to be the case. And by the way, they're doing these DLC releases because it follows the same storyline. So I'm sure that having Kate Bishop first and then Clint Barton Hawkeye second in the DLC, that was probably planned from the beginning to go along with the story. But what wasn't planned was the lack of multiplayer content and the amount and the delays for these new characters. So I think that I think we'll get Black Panther. I think it'll be successful for about a week, like we've seen with maybe a little bit more than the Hawkeye DLC. And I think Spider-Man will release. But after that, I don't see She-Hulk. I don't see Captain Marvel coming. I don't see the Winter Soldier. And I don't see War Machine making it. I would be surprised if any of those characters actually made it, because like you said, AWOL, you're asking for a lot of budget with very little return. And at the end of the day, as we've all seen from the gaming industry, and as we talk about it almost every time we do this show, money speaks.
Yep.
And that's about it in the industry.
And games like this live and die by their player base, and you need to have active player base to even be able to queue up and enjoy the content. Comment here from Narnicle saying, thought if I was a PlayStation owner and I play Avengers with Spider-Man, that could be unique gameplay. I don't think that it would be that unique to have Spider-Man gameplay, given that there's a lot of gameplay already out there, to be honest. But I understand where you're coming from with that. I would
tune in to watch it.
Well, there you go. Ross would tune in to watch it.
But that just once though.
Just
because
once, right? Just to see what it's like.
Yeah, exactly.
So as a couple YouTube videos, maybe you could highlight the gameplay, but doing streams about it, maybe not. But if you're going to cover this game as a content creator, you're going to have to do something very unique with it. And the one unique thing you could do with this game is being super positive about it. Seriously. So if you created a bunch of YouTube videos talking about how hopeful you are for it, being like the one bastion of hope on YouTube, talking about how you're excited about the DLCs, talking about the upcoming about it, talk about the future of the franchise and things like that, speculating about the upcoming characters and kind of hyping it in that regard, you could probably capture the small niche audience for this game and build a channel around that. Similar to how a channel called Your Anthem capitalized on Anthem. It was the only Anthem channel left, Your Anthem, as the game died. And he ended up becoming the #1 channel for the game, getting, tens of thousands of views per video on a basically dying and dead game that was essentially doomed, and building a decent audience off of it, getting sponsorships, I imagine making thousands of dollars per month. So there is a little bit of audience to be mopped up here, if you will, for Marvel Avengers from a streamer and YouTuber standpoint. But I definitely wouldn't recommend covering this game as a long-term prospect, but as a shorter-term prospect, maybe for 2021, if you're one of the last channels that are covering this game and covering it, and especially in a positive and hopeful light, you could definitely capitalize on that. And you definitely need to be restreaming. So thank you to Restream for sponsoring our show. We're currently streaming on YouTube, Periscope, Trovo, DLive, and Facebook Gaming, and we recommend that you, Narnicle, and everybody else who's watching the show stream on multiple platforms at the same time to grow faster. You don't know, for example, which platform you would grow faster on for Marvel Avengers, but by streaming to all of these platforms at the same time, you can get that information and get those data and those facts much faster than before. So, we have one more point, it appears here, before we kind of finish this up. And this is something that I wanted to bring up, and this is a licensed IP game. So what do I mean by that? I have never seen wildly successful, like popular IP, intellectual property, become a successful live service or multiplayer game with a big fan base that lasts and grows YouTube channels for a long time? I don't know of any examples. All the Star Wars games, for example, that have launched ultimately fizzled out and failed. All the Marvel games, DC games fizzle out and fail. All the licensed intellectual properties, you think they have these like big IPs, right? It's such a famous intellectual property. Marvel, you know, obviously the games have to be successful and they have to be big, but I can't think of a single example of a popular licensed IP multiplayer game that actually made it. If you look at the popular games that have actually made it in multiplayer, they're all original intellectual properties for the most part, or they were niche intellectual properties on like a niche book or something that's licensed and built out. Fortnite, Counter-Strike, Dota, all of these, they aren't licensed. They aren't taking something that's already popular and then video game-izing it and then making it into a multiplayer game. They're taking something that's not popular and then the video game makes it popular. And so I think this is another example, in my opinion. People put their hopes into Star Wars games, Marvel games, DC games, and they think it's so popular. It's got to be big. Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, stuff like that. And then those games come out and they're just not popular. I think it's a recipe for failure. I think something that people can learn is if you see a game coming out and it has a popular intellectual property associated with it, it's more likely to fail than the average video game, in my opinion. Not more likely to succeed, because they've never succeeded. I've never seen a successful multiplayer game with a licensed intellectual property drop and build a huge ass community from it and become a top game. It has never happened. They always fizzle out, and at best they become a low to middling game at best. This is just another example of that. I don't know. Can you guys think of any other examples where they license an popular IP and it actually becomes a successful multiplayer game? Never seen it in my whole career.
Not multiplayer. No, I think it's we got to stress multiplayer on that, because they've had some, like the Injustice games where they had a lot of success, the Batman games, but again, these are all single player games. It's difficult to build a community over a single player plot driven game. So from that aspect, yeah, I think you're right. It's kind of open. I hadn't really thought about that before, but you're right.
Perrin, can you think of any multiplayer licensed IP games that have ever been successful? Because I sure as heck can't.
It's almost like in the same way that when you try to make a movie from a video game, it's like 99% chance of failure. You try to make a multiplayer game from a movie, 99% chance of failure. Like both, it goes both ways. And I can't think of anything. There might be some. Chat, you can let us know. Viewers in the comments, you can let us know. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any multiplayer. Single player, sure. The closest one is like maybe Lord of the Rings Online, but that was pretty niche. That was it was too niche. I wouldn't say that was like a massive smash hit or success by any means.
That makes me excited to keep an eye on the upcoming Harry Potter game.
Yeah, I don't think
because
that game.
Or the Lego versions of stuff, but they aren't multiplayer though.
Yeah, none of these are successful multiplayer games. Like none of them can hold a higher player base over time. And so the reason why I want to bring this up as a red flag for everybody who is potentially looking at these games. When you license somebody's intellectual property, you have to get their permission and their approval for every decision. And so that's going to slow you down in the development process, and that's going to prevent you from making good gameplay decisions and taking any risks. That's number one. And number two, you also have to pay them royalties off of that game. And so you're starting out of the starting line, trying to make money off this video game, but you have to pay this huge fee to Marvel, this huge fee to Star Wars, this huge fee to Harry Potter and all of these IPs. You have to pay them off first, then you have to pay to develop the game, then you have to pay to market the game on top of that, and then you're at a financial disadvantage licensing these IPs and licensing these properties and trying to make a successful game about it. It makes it, at this point, impossible. I mean, maybe a game will come out that's multiplayer with a licensed IP and be successful, but so far, it looks like all the odds are stacked against you if you're trying to make a successful game like that. And Marvel's yet another casualty in a long line of games that take a wildly popular IP, they try to turn it into something successful that people are going to be engaged with over time, and it just isn't working out. And so I just don't think Marvel, a probability that Marvel's going to succeed on a scale on percentages. 100% is success, 0% is definitely going to fail. Ross.
Wait, based on just this game alone or any future?
This particular game, Marvel's Avengers, can it make a comeback?
15%, maybe 20%, yes. I do give it to the end of the year. I do think we're going to get new content. But when you have no player base, you can't make money, and that's the bottom line. So maybe 15-20% chance that we see content going past 2021.
Perrin.
Negative 5%.
I bet $1. Thank you so much for watching the Digital Drop Podcast. We're back live on YouTube. Yeehaw. I don't know. We were trying just uploading videos for a while. We want to go live again. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday live on all